Hey guys, happy, is it Thursday? Thursday, happy Thursday. The week is almost over, yay. Um, I'm just jumping on for a few minutes because I'm finding myself, Valentine's Day is coming up. Um, and I'm just finding myself thinking a lot lately about the fact that if I had stayed, like a lot of us, if I had stayed in the system, in the family faith that I was raised in, my life would look very different today. I doubt I'd even be married. Um, what I was raised with was this very isolationist view of faith. Um, we genuinely believed that we were part of an extremely tiny remnant of true believers. Um, I was raised in a world where my dad had this is what we believed, is my dad had extraordinary discernment to um, weed through the true Christians and the not true Christians. And although we attended church for a good chunk of my childhood, it was always kind of understood that the majority of people in those churches were probably not real Christians. They were either sheep being deceived or they were the snakes doing the deceiving. So I grew up with a very strange idea of what the Christian world looked like. And like all good Christians, I was also raised with this idea that I could only ever marry another Christian, but since the remnant was supposed to be so freaking tiny, my chances of getting married were basically slim to none. And I just remember this added a whole extra level of stress and anxiety going on dating apps, because I have this huge responsibility to choose right, because this man would be my spiritual leader. He would be the spiritual leader of any children we would have. So I needed to make sure that somehow this man fit into the extremely tiny remnant that I belonged to. Otherwise, it would be an unequally yoked relationship. My kids would probably grow up without Jesus. I would probably end up sliding out of faith and losing my salvation. It's very high stakes. And so at some point, I think I just kind of resigned myself to thinking, this guy probably doesn't exist. There may be, I really did think at one point there might only be 10 true believers in the entire world, and what are the chances that one of those 10 believers is an age-appropriate man who I'm also attracted to? That's winning the lottery kind of odds. So I just kind of resigned myself to, I'm just never getting married. And also, like, the marriages around me that I saw, they were not what I wanted for myself. I saw women constantly shrinking themselves down. I saw a lot of tension, the important things not getting discussed. I saw fighting, like not fair fighting, where there were winners and losers, which is its own kind of issue. And so, like, that wasn't something I wanted in my life. And I just, and there was a part of me that was like, I really do want to find that partner. I want to have that passionate, lifelong kind of love. But if the remnant is that small, and this is the kind of marriage that I can look forward to, why? Why would I search for that? And so I kind of, I still had crushes and I still developed feelings for guys that were not good for me, but there was a large part of me for a very long time that thought this could never happen for me. The odds were stacked against me. And then when I started to deconstruct in around 2015, One of the first things that I threw away, decided was not healthy for me, I was done with it, was complementarianism. Um, because I had seen the fruits of it, not only within my own family, just like in church cultures around me. I saw how it hurt women. Um, I saw how it turned us into objects. Our bodies were to be sexual outlets. Our bodies were supposed to produce children. Our bodies were supposed to take on the physical and emotional labor of carrying the family on our backs. And that wasn't what I wanted. That I grew to believe that that was not what God wanted for me. And so I threw away complementarianism. I began to look into egalitarianism and feminism, and I realized that a worldview where I get to be an equal, not just with if I got married, my future husband, but an equal in the church, an equal in society. I wasn't just a thing to be used up because of what my body can do for the men around me. That was something I did want, and if I ever got married, I would want a partner that saw me for me, loved me for me, not what my body could do for him. I wanted someone who was a true partner. But, you know, again, I still had a lot of baggage around, like, who am I allowed to date? Who am I allowed to marry? And around 2015, there was this guy. There's always a guy. There was this guy that I had technically known him for a very long time. We met as teenagers on a forum. We met in person one time for dinner with mutual friends, 2011, 2012-ish, somewhere in there. And around 2015, he and I began to actually develop a friendship, moving out of the acquaintance zone into the friend zone. He is someone who had by that time gone through, it wasn't called deconstruction at that time, but it was deconstruction. And he had gone through a whole journey and came out the other side not believing in a God. He's an atheist. But he was someone who kind of understood what I was going through when I started to deconstruct. And so he was just one of a few safe people I found outside of evangelicalism that I could develop a safe relationship with and process what I was going through. And he was really great at kind of challenging some of my presumptions that I had picked up from evangelicalism that actually were not in keeping with historical Christianity. That's a whole other side topic. I'll get into that another time. But he was a really great sounding board. He was really great to kind of challenge me to keep going on my deconstruction journey in healthy ways. He was also like, he was just all around a really great supportive relationship to have during that time. And as we became better friends, feelings were growing. But there was a lot of wrestling on my end that, you know, one of the biggest things that have been instilled in me is I have to marry someone who shares my faith. But as I began to deconstruct and I started to embrace more of an egalitarian model of faith and a more feminist understanding of the world, I had this very clear crystallizing moment where I just realized, wait a second, if there is only one mediator between God and me, and that's Jesus, if I am truly capable of going directly to God, hearing from the Holy Spirit, growing in my own faith, why do I need a man who also shares that faith? Like, really, what is that going to do for me? And my realization is, this actually, if at the time we had not discussed our feelings, I had no idea where he stood. I knew I liked him, but as I was kind of wrestling with, like, if it is reciprocal, can we date? Like, what does that look like? I had this realization that if I am truly embracing this egalitarian worldview, then I can't dump the responsibility of my faith and my spiritual growth on my partner, because that is my responsibility. And it left me feeling much more empowered to grow in my faith and grow as a person, because it was all on my plate to do that. I wasn't shifting the responsibility anymore on some theoretical man that I may or may not ever marry. And, I was thinking, like, okay, so I'm responsible for my faith. But what about if, I was totally overthinking this, by the way. What if he likes me? What if we date? What if we get married? What if we have children? What about my children's souls? And that took me about 2 minutes of thinking to realize both he and myself grew up in Christian homes. My Christian faith was turning into something completely different than what I was raised with. He wasn't a Christian anymore. So obviously there's no guarantee if you raise a child in a Christian home that they will continue on in the sort of faith that they were raised in. They are human beings. They have agency. They have autonomy. They have minds that find ideas compelling or not compelling. And they have every right to have a belief system that is all their own. So while I could raise any future children with my beliefs, and I could take them to church multiple times a week, I could read the Bible to them day and night, pray with them, all of that, there's still no guarantee what they'll believe, because they're human beings and you can't control what another human being believes. And so that, honestly, that was like a huge weight lifted off of me. I wasn't even dating this man yet. Obviously, I was overthinking, but I couldn't. The idea that I was responsible to make sure that my husband was a good man, to make sure my future kids was a good man, wow, good work, Sherry. My future kids were good people. That responsibility was lifted, because the more that I realized human beings are human beings, and human beings get to have their own ideas and their own ways of showing up in the world, and I'm not actually responsible for any of that. That was such a huge moment for me, and it left me feeling very empowered that the only person I am truly responsible for at the end of the day is myself. And am I heading towards a future where I am a good person, where I am fostering healthy spirituality and healthy faith in myself? Am I doing what is right for me to be mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically healthy? That's what matters at the end of the day. And so as I wrestled through that, and I just realized there's a lot of freedom here, actually. And if it does turn out that this guy has feelings for me like I have feelings for him, that is something that we are both free to explore together and see what does a life maybe look like together. And I am honestly so glad that I did all of that work, and I processed. I'm so glad, because I mean, this all happened around 2015. It's 2024 now. Spoiler, I married the guy. We have a great life together. He's very supportive of me pursuing healthy spirituality for myself. He does not attempt to control me. We already know, I mean, we don't know if we'll have kids, but we already know that if kids are part of the future for us, we will raise them to know what each one of us believes. I will probably take them to church. I will teach them how to participate in my kind of faith, and if that's something they want to embrace themselves, great. If they find another kind of spirituality that is good and healthy for them, great. That's what I want for them. I want everyone to just be healthy and be okay. And the kind of faith that I was raised in that tried to steal my autonomy from me to make my own decisions about the life that I wanted to create and the people that I could love, that is not a faith I want to pass on to the next generation. I can't do it. Now I feel like I'm rambling. So to sum up, love is good. We're all responsible for ourselves. And we can't control one another. So if you find someone in this world that you love, even if they don't fit what you were told to look for, even if they live a whole other life that you may not understand, as long as they are healthy people, as long as they treat you in a healthy way that respects your autonomy and your agency and your consent, as long as they're supportive of you, your faith, your values, someone who shares your values, you have freedom to choose that, to explore what that kind of life might look like with that person. And I know a lot of the things we've been instilled with makes us anxious, that what if we're falling into sin? What if we're risking our salvation? And to that I would say, if every good and perfect gift comes from God, that includes love, even if that love looks different than what our communities or our families told us that we could have. Because love is a beautiful thing. Love is a good and perfect gift. And that comes from God. You can't tell me any differently.